Much like Alien Earth redefined xenomorphs and their relationship with humans, the new Predator movie has given new meaning to the Predator society and culture as a whole, the most important of them being what it means to be a bad blood predator and under which circumstances one can or cannot kill another. If you're here, I'm assuming you've watched the movie or you just love the Yautja lore, or both. Either way, there will be spoilers for Predator Badlands. Now, with that out of the picture, I think it's not a surprise to anyone that Dan Tractenberg's third Predator film is as much about the Predator culture and honor of the hunt as it is about Dek, the young unblooded Predator who was sentenced to death by his own father for the crimes of being a runt. But instead, the runt later proved to become the Dark Horse, kinda like the comics that used to print Yautja stories, but I digress. So in the movie, Dek's dad kills his older son Kwei after a short duel, and at the end of the movie, Dek kills his father Njohrr. Now, it's been explicitly noted that in the Yautja Code of Honor that killing another predator that is not a bad blood predator is the most supreme of crimes. Yet, it doesn't look like Njohrr or Dek were considered bad bloods by the larger Predator society. So, what's the reason behind this discrepancy? Are these two some sort of exception to the Code of Honor, or is it something else entirely? Well, yeah, as I said, Badlands has updated the Code of Honor a bit, and that's what we're here to discuss. But before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. Before anything else, let me first talk about what the Yautja Code of Honor says about stuff like murder of a fellow predator and showing mercy when violence is an option. As far as the first one is concerned, to kill another predator intentionally has extremely dire consequences. This is the stuff of nightmares, even for the Yautja, and that's saying something. And although murder is considered to be the worst of the crimes, it's allowed in cases of self-defense or while settling a dispute. About mercy and respect, the code says that a predator should show mercy to those he or she defeats in a fair hunt, and they should respect those who win a fair hunt. And the deadlier the prey, the more the respect and honor the victor receives. Furthermore, it's prohibited to hunt innocents and unarmed creatures, and by unarmed, they mean even those that lack the physical capacity to defeat the hunter. So assuming that you got all that and don't need to rewind, let's move forward and see what happened in the movie and what it means for us. So at the beginning of Predator Badlands, we see Dek and Kwei in a friendly duel, where Kwei tries to prepare Dek for an upcoming hunt. A hunt that would earn him his cloak. But soon their father Njohrr arrives and expresses his discontent with and disappointment in Kwei for not having killed Dek already. As I mentioned earlier, Dek was not as well built as the other predators, and thus he was considered the runt of the litter. His father saw him as a sign of weakness, and the Predator society doesn't tolerate weakness. In fact, much like Thomas Goldokun wanted to kill the weak soups, predators cull their weaker offspring. So Njohrr arrives, binds Dek, and orders Kwei to do the deed. But instead, Kwei frees his younger brother and draws his weapon against his father. This naturally pissed the hell out of Njohrr, but he keeps his calm and first dismembers Kwei before killing him in cold blood. The old man must have kept his son's skull as a trophy too, I'm sure. After this, Dek leaves for Genna and Njohrr goes about his business. That's the first murder. The next one happens when Dek returns from the hunt along with Thea and Bud, the now adolescent and extremely adorable Kalisk. So the whole reason why Dek was so determined about hunting the Kalisk, Bud's mom, was that Kwei had asked him to. By succeeding in his hunt, Dek would have ensured that Kwei's death did not go in vain, and that it was actually honored. Upon his return, Dek asks his father for the cloak, which was rightfully his, but Njohrr refuses him the cloak. Once again, a duel starts. When we first saw Dek at the beginning of the movie, he was just a helpless young predator who watched his brother die. But by the time he returned home, Dek had matured into a warrior, an adult who knew how to deal with foes and by what means. Dek makes quick work of his father and takes the cloak himself. This was murder number 2. Now, as I mentioned, killing another Yautja who's not a bad blood is actually forbidden, and will result in death, often by ritualistic torture for the crime. But none of these two were punished. Why? Let's tackle the 2 instances one by one. In the case of Njohrr, he was actually honoring the established code. You see, someone who shows mercy to a weakling is also considered weak, and they have no place for weakness in the Predator society. So when Kwei tried to protect his brother and saved his life by sending him to Genna, away from his father's sword, Kwei actually committed a crime of sorts, and he himself became fair game. So when Njohrr killed Kwei, it was alright. We did not know about this whole culling thing previously, and that's an absolutely new addition to the Yautja culture. I mean, we did know that the Yautja society honors only strength and all that, but culling was a bit too much, and a very recent addition. Naturally, Filicide did not condemn Njohrr as a bad blood predator. Second, when Dek kills his father, it was because his father did not respect Dek and give him what was rightfully his. If you remember, the Code of Honor clearly speaks about giving respect to someone who has recently returned from a hunt, but our guy Njohrr did not offer his son that respect. This means that he broke the Code of Honor, and became a bad blood predator himself. himself. By extension, it means that Njohrr became fair game for Dek, and Dek, who was already pissed off with his dad for the treatment meted out to Kwei, did what was necessary without thinking twice. So this is how Badlands updated a bit of lore, at least as far as the Code of Honor is concerned. But this one is not the only thing that the movie spoke about their culture and society. The other big development was Dek's mum. Up until now, we've seen that all Yautja are male, at least in the movies. We have had Predator females like Big Mama in the comics and Cleopatra in the games, but never in the movies. It was believed that most Predator women lead a very domestic life. You know, bringing up babies, taking care of the household, that sort of thing. And that female Predators joining the hunt was as rare as Brienne of Tarth serving as a member of the King's Guard. But Predator Badlands is changing that. After Dek kills his dad, they see a huge mothership on the horizon. Thea asks him about the ship and he says that it was his mother. As you can see for yourself, not only is Mrs. Njohrr a Predator elder, but she also captains a huge-ass ship, showing her elevated position in their ranks. No longer are Predator women behind the scenes, and when the Badlands sequel happens, we'll definitely get to see her. In fact, why wait for a direct sequel to Badlands? It's quite possible that Prey 2, another Tractenberg film, will feature Dek as well as his mother. You see, he already has shown that Njohrr is with the Predators in cryosleep, along with thousands of other Predator killers. But the thing is, most of the Predators that have been killed were killed because they attacked someone for no good reason. I mean, who's given these guys the right to wreak havoc on random people and creatures? Just because they want to hunt and because they themselves were hunted once? Yeah, according to one Predator story, the Predators were initially a reptilian race called Hishkuten, who were genetically experimented upon, and then hunted by an insectoid race called the Amengi. Even if that's not canon, Predators mostly die of their own fault. No one deliberately attacks a Predator. So anyway, this is what I wanted to talk about in this video. But while I'm still on the subject, let's also quickly discuss what exactly the commandments of the Yautja Honor Code are, shall we? The Yautja Honor Code isn't really a list of arbitrary laws written in some alien courtroom, and if you look deeper, you'll find that it's a centuries-old creed, a set of brutal, sacred commandments that shape how the Predators live, fight, and die. It's less of a rulebook and more of a moral operating system for a species that hunts as both sport and religion. Think of it as a mix between a warrior's Bible and a survivalist code, except instead of love thy neighbor, it's skin thy worthy opponent. And while most humans assume these creatures are nothing more than intergalactic trophy collectors, the truth is that Yautja culture has more structure and honor than half of Earth's empires combined. At its core, the Honor Code dictates who can be hunted, how they can be killed, and why. It's what separates an honorable warrior from a dishonorable murderer, or in Yautja terms, a bad blood. Break it and you don't just lose your rank, you lose your name, your clan, and your right to exist. Bad bloods are treated as infections, hunted down by their own kind, and erased from history like they never lived. The structure of the code. The code doesn't come from one single text. It's pieced together from Yautja scriptures, elder teachings, and the stories of their most legendary hunts. Each clan may follow its own interpretation, but the fundamentals remain universal, and deal with respecting strength, avoiding weakness, and never dishonoring the hunt. Now, to understand how serious this is, imagine a society where failure or cowardice can get you killed, and where the only way to redeem yourself is to die well. That's the Yautja way. Whether you're a fresh young blood or a battle-hardened elder, every hunt is a moral test, and breaking the code is equivalent to committing a religious crime. What happens when you break it? The penalty depends on the rank. Young bloods and novices sometimes get a pass if the mistake is accidental. Elders chalk it up to inexperience. But once you're seasoned, there's no forgiveness. You either submit to punishment voluntarily or get hunted by enforcers, elite predators whose sole purpose is to eliminate those who have dishonored their kind. And these aren't your average hunters. Enforcers are executioners, trained to track bad bloods across galaxies. Once they find you, there's no trial, only justice. It's not entirely impossible to regain honor, though it happens about as often as a human beating a Yautja barehanded. Redemption usually requires acknowledging the violation, accepting the punishment, and completing a near-suicidal task that proves loyalty. Scarface is the prime example. He broke the code, faced his exile, and earned his way back through a blood-soaked atonement that would make most humans faint halfway through. What defines a violation? Now let's get to the fun part. What actually counts as breaking the code? The first and most serious offense is murdering another Yautja without cause. This is the ultimate taboo. Unless it's self-defense or a formal duel sanctioned by elders, killing your own kind is the single fastest way to become a bad blood. It doesn't matter if the victim insulted your honor or scratched your ship. Once you cross that line, you're done. Even Njohrr from Predator Badlands would have been toast if his act hadn't fallen within the code's exceptions. Then comes the issue of claiming another hunter's kill. That's the Yautja equivalent equivalent of plagiarism mixed with grave robbery. If two hunters face a xenomorph and one finishes the fight by stealing the final blow, that's theft, not victory. A hunter who takes another's trophy, dead or alive, commits one of the highest forms of insult. Depending on the clan, this can end in exile or execution. There's also failing a hunt, not dying honorably after a loss. For a Yautja, shame is a heavier burden than death. If the hunt goes wrong, the warrior is expected to take their own life rather than return home in disgrace. Those who refuse are hunted down by enforcers and given what's politely known as assisted suicide. The Code of the Hunt. When it comes to hunting, the code gets incredibly detailed. You can't just kill anything that moves. The prey must be worthy. Worthy game must be able to defend itself, meaning no children, no elderly, no pregnant creatures, and definitely no sick or unarmed victims. The prey has to have a fair chance at survival, or the hunt becomes dishonorable. Even the use of technology is regulated. Over-reliance on advanced gear like plasma casters or cloaking devices is frowned upon. The greater the challenge, the greater the glory. A kill made with minimal equipment earns far more honor than one achieved with heavy artillery. That's why the best hunters sometimes fight barehanded, because the less advantage you take, the more your skill shines. And then there's the rule of equal combat. If the prey demands close quarters, the Yautja must oblige. No lasers, no shoulder cannons, no hiding. Just blades, fists, and grit. It's not about killing efficiently, it's about killing with dignity. Honor and mercy. Mercy has an odd place in Yautja culture. It's not weakness, it's recognition. If a prey fights well and loses honorably, the hunter must spare them, or at least grant a swift death. Likewise, when a Yautja loses fairly, the victor deserves respect, not revenge. It's this code of mutual acknowledgement that separates a true hunter from a beast. In the AVP novelization, for example, when Lex Woods earns the Predator's respect, the hunter deactivates his cloak before striking. That act, revealing oneself to the prey, is the ultimate gesture of equality. Unfortunately, the film's version tossed that detail aside, which is a shame, because it's one of the code's more poetic touches. Forbidden hunts and weapons. Not every creature is fair game. Hunting intelligent species is heavily restricted, especially for unblooded hunters. You have to earn your right to hunt beings like humans or xenomorphs, and when you do, you're expected to play fair. Weapons of mass destruction like the blazer or electroshock missile battery are outright banned. These aren't tools of the hunt, they're weapons of war. Using them dishonors not only the hunter, but the entire species. A Yautja hunt is supposed to be an art form, not a massacre. Purity and abominations. The Yautja take their genetics as seriously as their honor. Any creature that mixes Yautja DNA with another species, whether through mutation or experimentation, is an abomination. Predaliens, hybrids, or anything resembling them must be exterminated on sight, no questions asked. And if someone was responsible for creating such an abomination, their death isn't clean. It's ritualistic, drawn out, and meant to serve as a warning. This obsession with purity ties back to the Yautja's view of the hunt as a spiritual process. The species sees itself as the perfect predator. Tampering with that perfection is not only blasphemy, but a direct attack on their very identity. The rule of secrecy. For all their pride, Yautja don't want their toys lying around for others to find. Leave no trace isn't a suggestion, it's an absolute law. No lesser species is allowed to possess Yautja technology. If a hunter knowingly lets humans or any other race get their hands on their weapons, they're executed immediately. If it happens by accident, and the hunter makes an effort to recover the tech and accepts punishment, they might be banished instead of killed. But either way, the rule is clear. The tech must never fall into the wrong hands. Humans especially are considered dangerous when equipped with Predator gear, which frankly is fair. We've seen what happens when a bunch of military scientists start tinkering with plasma casters and cloaking devices. In Yautja eyes, that's enough reason to label all humans who possess their tech as fair game. The philosophical core. Beneath all the blood and blade work, the code reveals a strange kind of morality. The Yautja aren't mindless killers. They see themselves as curators of evolution, testing species, refining strength, and preserving the balance between predator and prey. The code ensures that every hunt is a ritual of respect, not chaos. That's why mercy exists, and why killing the weak is forbidden. It's not compassion in the human sense, it's preservation of meaning. A victory without risks is worthless, and prey without power is beneath contempt. To kill for sport alone would be an insult to the very concept of the hunt. Even death is handled with ceremony. A Yautja who dies in battle joins the ancestral pantheon of hunters, remembered through their trophies and deeds. One who dies dishonorably, say by cowardice or deceit, is erased. There's no afterlife for the dishonored, only oblivion. Why it matters. If you follow the Predator lore for long enough, you'll notice that every major story from Predator 2 to Prey to Badlands hinges on the honor code in some way. It's the invisible spine of their culture. It decides who gets remembered as a legend and who gets hunted as scum. Take Scar from AVP. He earns respect because he follows the code to the letter, sparing Lex and marking her as a warrior. Or take the Bad Bloods from Predator Concrete Jungle. They become outcasts because they violate the very foundation of that system. Even the fugitive predators fall somewhere along that moral spectrum. Every Yautja story is, at its heart, a morality play disguised as an action movie. The code also highlights something very human about them: structure and chaos. Beneath the masks, they're not so different from us. Prideful, bound by tradition, constantly trying to prove their worth. The difference is that when we break our rules, we get fined or imprisoned. When they break theirs, they get hunted across the stars. So yeah, the Yautja Honor Code isn't about peace, fairness, or morality as we understand it. It's about meaning, about making every kill, every duel, and every sacrifice matter. It's a moral compass in a world built entirely on violence. And while humans may look at them and see monsters, the truth is that the Predators see themselves as something closer to priests, warriors upholding an ancient, bloody covenant. That was all in this one, folks. See you around. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.